एकम अक्षरम हृदि निरंतरम भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् याहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरूढा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्ति नाहं तत्तत भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम् सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। नमो रमण। This is the Thursday Satsangh from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, the South Bangalore Center. As usual, we'll be reading from Muruganar's compilation of Bhagavan's teachings entitled Guru Vachaka Kovai. We'll be reading 2 verses. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on the meaning. That will be followed by a 10-minute Atma-Ucharan session. After the 2 sessions are over, if there are some questions in the chat, today Dilip ji or I will try to address them. And then Dilip ji will do the summing up for the day. That will be followed by the offering of Ashtotram to Bhagavan by Vaibhavji and Prarthna. So we begin today's satsang by reading 1 verse from Guru Vachaka Kovai. The work itself is divided into 3 segments: investigation into the truth, meditation on the truth, and experience of the truth. Today we are reading from meditation on the truth, philanthropy. The subsegment is philanthropy. Verse number 808. As everything flourishes as one's own swarupa, whatever a person does to others, he does only to himself. Verse number 808. As everything flourishes as one's own swarupa, whatever a person does to others, he does only to himself. Ramanasramam has written an equally short comment. If a person helps others, he is helping himself. Similarly, if he harms others, he is harming himself. I'll read the verse again. As everything flourishes as one's own swarupa, whatever a person does to others, he does only to himself. This is the diamond rule of ethics, which is extracted from Bhagavan's nectar of teachings. To me, this teaching has been greatly helpful whenever the mind is outward turned and I have a feeling I am engaging with others. All those occasions, this rule is applicable. Whatever we give to others, we are giving to ourselves only. Now, there is this golden rule of ethics, which is found in all the major religions of the world. That in a seminar about 10 years ago, we had computed that 63, 64 belief systems, all of them, including the major religions, they have the golden rule of ethic. The golden rule of ethic is, as ethic comes and leaves us at the doorsteps of worship of God, or even has the capacity, as per the Karma Yoga, to take us directly to the self. The golden rule of ethic is something like this. That is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That is the golden rule of ethic, which is present in all the religions, all the religious beliefs. Therefore, all the major religious beliefs, they have the strong foundation in Dharma. The dharmic statement there is, do unto others. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. First think how you would like them to interact with you. How would you like all the worldly people, all the other people of the world to interact with you? Would you like them to be polite with you, or would you like them to be impolite with you? Would you like them to be truthful to you, or would you like them to be untruthful to you? Would you like them to be magnanimous in their forgiving of your shortcomings, or would you like them to nitpick on your shortcomings all the time? So therefore, the golden rule of ethic is that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Even in the greatest the philosophies that we find, this is incorporated. For instance, Immanuel Kant's philosophy, it includes that unless a law is applicable to all, you cannot have it as a law unto yourself. For your inner purity, the same law should be universally applicable, to be applicable to everyone. Then you can adopt it as a law for yourself. But Bhagavan, as his magnanimity is so great, goes one step further. He doesn't say, imagine what others have to do to you. No. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, irrespective of how you feel they should treat or not treat you, don't worry about that. Since everything in the perceived area of attention, they all flourish only as your own swarupa. They are all the self. Because of ajnana, we are superimposing and seeing them as non-self, seeing them as apart from us. There is nothing apart from the self. In Arunachala Pancharatnam, how does Bhagavan define Arunachala in the Yoga Marga? Velividayam Vittu Vilangum Arunesa. Who is Arunesa? Arunesha is the one to whom there is no outside. He is unconditioned. He is free. He is that consciousness which has no limits, no outside, then no inside. Velividayam Vittu Vilangum Arunesa. Therefore, Bhagavan says everything flourishes as Arunesha only. Everything flourishes as one's own self, the limitless self. Therefore, whatever I speak, whatever I do, whatever I act in this world, which I feel I am doing to others, I am giving to myself only. This is the beautifully convenient rule of turning inward. That பிறருக்கு கொடுப்பதெல்லாம் உனக்கே கொடுத்து கொடுக்கிறார். Whatever we give to others, யார்தான் கொடாது விடுவார். Bhagavan says, if one understands this, that whenever I am passing on something, I am only giving to myself. It is said that if you go to the karma rule, it is said that in the Himalayan trekking, those who go to the Everest, the highest and most difficult of peaks, what they do is they take packets of food, extra food. Even while climbing, they leave it here, there, everywhere on the path. So that if on their way down, if there is a blizzard or if they lose their track, they will get some food somewhere. That means for their, as Muruganar clarifies, we live, we give for our own sake. They will always be available for us. Bhagavan goes one step further and says, right now, there is no tomorrow. Right now, whatever I am giving to myself. This beautiful teaching helps us turn inward and give everyone the maunam. When we give everyone the maunam, that alone remains with us. The mauna sannidhi, Bhagavan says, that is the best gift to give, where the ego has subsided into the self, where the mauna sannidhi is present. If words can be effective, will the silence not be effective? Bhagavan asks. So the way to abide in the silence is to give everyone this silence. So let us practice that. Let us practice the art of giving everyone the silence, therefore being in the silence. How to do that is Bhagavan's method of Atmavacharam, stilling the ego. How to still the ego? Whenever a thought appears and tries to entice, or you get enticed in following it, Bhagavan says, don't do that. Don't follow the thought. Inquire for whom has this thought arisen. Always the answer will be, this thought has arisen for me. Immediately continue the quest as, who am I? Who is this for whom the thought has arisen? Then the I or the ego subsides into its source, and the thought that arose falls away for want of pursuit. With repeated practice of maunam, of stilling the ego, Bhagavan assures us that we will gain this ability, we will gain this strength to abide in that source naturally, effortlessly. Till such effortless abidance is realized to be our very nature, one should make this effort given by Bhagavan of giving everybody else this great gift of maunam by practicing Atmauchara. For the next 10 minutes, let us sit in maunam. Let us give maunam to others and have maunam with ourselves. Vaibhavji, you will set the time for us?
Yes, sir. I'll do that, sir.
Bhagavate Shri Ramananjali. We continue the satsang by reading the second verse. This is from, again, meditation on the truth. The subsegment is conduct for sadhakas. Conduct for sadhakas. Verse number 786. For those who have earnestly embarked upon the performance of their duty, which is self-abidance, slipping from the state of that self, from the state of the self that possesses the excellence of non-duality, is itself a grave fault. This being so, if one ponders over it, can interference in others' affairs be consistent with this duty of self-abidance? No, seems to be the answer. I'll read that again. Conduct for sadhakas. Can we interfere in others' affairs? Are we right in interfering with others' affairs? For those who have earnestly embarked upon the performance of their duty, which is self-abidance, slipping from the state of the self that possesses the excellence of non-duality, where there is no other, is itself a grave fault. This being so, that slipping from the non-duality itself is a grave fault. This being so, if one ponders over it, can interference in others' affairs be consistent with this duty of self-abidance? Is Bhagavan's question in this verse. There are supports here in the form of notes. The first one is from Padamalai, and the second one is again from Sri Ramana Padamalai by Sivaprakash Pillaivar. The first Padamalai is by Muruganar. Bhagavan. The state of abiding as Swarupa, which is the pure and vast true consciousness, is an obligation that should be firmly observed by all the beings in the world. Swadharma, one's own duty, is abidance in the pure self only. All other perceived duties are worthless. 155, the next quote. Blessed be the feet of the friend Bhagavan, who instructs, don't go back on your word. Keep away from others' affairs. Bhagavan takes these words from us, this commitment from us, that we will never interfere in others' affairs. We will take care of our duty only properly. We will never interfere or waste time in judging others or interfering in their affairs. It appears we have, according to Sivaprakash Pillaivar, the moment we are a devotee of Bhagavan practicing self-inquiry, we have given that commitment. So Bhagavan is always asking us, please keep that commitment, that don't slip from that. So the earlier verse which we saw was about how whatever you give to others, you give to yourself. Here the duty is defined. These are the duty and freedom are two things which are the clarifying aspects of life, apparently contradictory. They are apparently contradictory. That is, when what we consider usually as our duty, we are not free to do it. That is, in the sense that it appears as though it's a compulsion. and freedom appears to be the opposite of duty. So therefore, to reconcile duty and freedom is the essence of spirituality. The essence of spirituality is to show us that there is no contradiction between duty and spirituality. Whenever a teaching performs this task of reconciling our duty and our freedom, then that teaching is complete. And Bhagavan is saying here that our duty and our freedom, they merge in one thing. They merge in self-abidance. Abiding as the self is the ultimate freedom, because there is nothing beyond that, beyond the limitless self. As we saw in Arunachala Pancharatnam, Arunachalam Velividayam Vittu Vilangum Arunesa. There are no limits. There is nothing outside of him to condition him, to restrain him, to either elevate him or to put him down. There is nothing outside of him. Therefore, self-abidance is the ultimate freedom. To abide as the limitless self, which is one's own nature, is the ultimate freedom. Bhagavan is emphasizing here, it is the sole duty, by saying that all other duties are trivial. And this is the sole duty of a human being, to abide as the self. Bhagavan has brought these two conflicting thoughts to us and reconciled them as one. In the Atmanishtata, in the self-abidance, one's own duty and one's own freedom, they are not two different things. They become one and the same. Now, it is a very difficult task, as I said, for spiritual teachings in duality to bring this reconciliation of duty and freedom. That is why in one of the higher philosophies it would say, please consider that your duties are self-given. You are a complete entity in yourself, and whatever you take on are given by yourself. Now, those kind of explanations are required to reconcile duty and freedom. Whereas in the Atmanishtata, the self-abidance, it is so easily reconciled. And Bhagavan says, this is the sole duty of man, to abide as the self. In fact, in the Padamala it is said, of all beings. To abide as the self is the duty of all beings. And Bhagavan extends that and says that when such is the duty, and a slip from the self-abidance is itself considered a fall, then how can one ever consider interfering in others' affairs? How can one ever consider judging others? How can one ever consider standing in the way of others' sadhana? For instance, it is said, whenever Bhagavan would be walking around in the ashram or coming back to the meditation hall where he was seated, whenever 2-3 people he sees are talking together or are standing in a group, Bhagavan says he would avoid them so that not to disturb them, not to disturb their sadhana. And it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the jnani is the one who does not disturb the world and therefore is not disturbed by it, who does not interfere with the others' affairs and therefore is not disturbed by others. Now, the beauty of the teaching is that one should be so focused on self-abidance and on non-duality that this should not even appear in the horizon, to consider others and what they are doing, what they are not doing, should not even appear in the horizon of thoughts of the sadhaka. That is the instruction here, where in self-abidance, the aspect of duty, what we should do, what we should diligently carry out, and what is the freedom that we have, both merge. In practicing that, Bhagavan has given this method of Atmaucharana. To practice that self-abidance, to practice the stillness of I, even when thoughts do not arise, Bhagavan says one should hold the I. That one need not wait for thoughts to arise. But with the Bhava Bala, the I can directly be held. This Bhagavan calls it as Summa Iruttal. This Summa Iruttal is the ultimate work one can do, ultimate duty one can perform. Bhagavan says, because To do this stillness of the ego, to do the stillness of the I, the whole mind should be employed without breaks. For any other mundane tasks, the mind is involved partly and with frequent breaks, Bhagavan says. Therefore, this practice, this duty of holding the I is fullness of effort, is complete duty, is purna karma. Mulu muyarchi, Bhagavan says. It is total effort. Why it is total effort? To hold the I, one cannot allow even a single thought to arise. Only when single thought arises, there are breaks or there is time. So therefore, this summa irithal is a practice where the duty of self-abidance is practiced with effort. So with Bhagavan's grace, if thought arises, let us inquire for whom is this thought and inquire who am I. Or if they don't arise with Bhava Bala, one can hold the I directly in the heart of Summa Irithal, till that abiding in the source is realized to be natural to us, where no effort is required. It becomes as simple as breathing. It becomes the simplest of things to abide in the self. Till such time that abiding in the self is realized to be our nature, we should practice Atmocharam. With Bhagavan's grace, let us sit in Atmocharam for 10 minutes. Vaibhavji, you will help us out?
Yes, sir. I'll set the alarms.
Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Yes, there are no remarks in the chat. May I request Dilipji to make the summing up for us?
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to the self, which alone is. These two beautiful verses are very clearly describing, making it clear that self alone is. There is no others. The very idea of others is the false knowledge. It is making it very, very clear. And usually of our own day starts, like if you take today itself, at least for me, I can say there was this duty of the office, and then there are some dharmas related to family, and now we are sitting as the sadhakas in the Atma Vichara, and then there are these few meditation sessions where we are abiding in the self. And the mind seems to be wavering between each of this as a different modes. And Bhagavan here, with these two beautiful verses, conveying very clearly, no, it is self alone is. Whether it is we are as sadhakas or duty bound, or we are abiding, it's only the non-dual self that alone is. That is the profound message these two verses are giving it to us. The very idea of seeing that they are different and is the mistake that we do, and that disturbs our sadhana, our duty of sadhana also. It disturbs the duty of our day-to-day life and moves us away from abidance, which is very natural, which is what Bhagavan is saying. Whatever we give to others, which is nothing but the flourishing of one's own self, one's own swarupa, by saying that, he is saying that whatever this manifestation that we are seeing is nothing but the self alone. So we should not consider that this is not the self. And then only when we sit in the meditation or anything, then alone it is the self. Or when we abide totally, is then alone it is the self. It is absolutely everything is the self. So whatever we give, we should be very clear that it is the self. When everything is the self, as Nanda Kumarji very beautifully brought out, then where is the need for this thought? Because the thought is the one which is making the division, that something is not the self and something is the self, something is duty, and all of that division is being only made by the thought. And therefore, by holding on to the thought, we are missing our duty, we are slipping away from our sadhana, and therefore getting into this, the troubling of the others, without knowing that it is the trouble we are troubling, and we are troubling ourselves too. So Nanda Kumarji very beautifully summed it up, that it is the horizon of the thought that is all the dualities. When the thoughts rise, there is duality. Therefore, being in the mauna is the full attention of the mind. Mulu muirchi, he said, the full attention. Everything else is half attention. It's a careless approach. It's half attention of the mind, whereas the fullness of the mind is the mauna itself. was brought out very beautifully. And he also brought it out very beautifully that the golden rule of ethics that we think that we have to bring into Vyavahara, everything is summed up in Bhagavan as self alone is. So we need not worry that Vyavahara, I have to hold on to many things. We just, if we remember that self alone is, whatever it is only for in the self, by the self, of the self. If we remember that way and do our duty, whatever that comes, even in Vyavahara, we are only doing self-abidance. And therefore, in a nutshell, that Bhagavan says that absolutely, whether it is manifestation or the silence, self alone is. All the ideas of duality is what we have to let go. And therefore, whenever a thought rises, giving that there is a possibility of a duality, we just have to hold on to Atma Vichara by inquiring, to whom is this? Who am I? And come back to the non-dual truth, which alone is. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. May I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to take us through the Ramana Stotram?
Yes, sir. Namo Ramana. Bharatwaja Vishwanatha Virachitam Sri Ramanashtottar Shatanamavalihi Apara Satchit Sukhavadi Rashe Yasyomi Matam Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chintavihinam Rati Chintayami Om Mahase Namahum Shena Jataya Namaha Om Sri Ramanaya Namaha Om Gurave Namaha Om Akhanda Samvidakaraya Namaha Om Mahojase Namaha Om Karanodhavaya Namaha Om Jagadvitavatāraya Namaha Om Sri Bhuminathasthalastitaya Namaha Om Parashara Kulottamsaya Namaha Om Sundaravyatapahpalaya Namaha Om Kamaniya Sucharitraya Namaha Om Sahayamba Sahayavate Namaha Om Shonachalamaholina Manasaya Namaha Om Swarnahastakaya Namaha Om Srimadvadashantamahastaya Labda Vidyodayaya Namaha Om Mahashakti Nipatena Prabhuddhaya Namaha Om Paramartha Vidhe Namaha Om Tivraya Namaha Om Pitrupadanveshine Namaha Om Indumaulina Pitrumate Namaha Om Viduradeshada Shonashailam Praptaya Namaha Om Tapomayaya Namaha Om Udasinaya Namaha Om Mahayogine Namaha Om Mahotsahaya Namaha Om Kushagradhiye Namaha Om Shanta Sankalpa Samrambhaya Namaha Om Susandrashe Namaha Om Savitre Namaha Om Sthiraya Namaha Om Tapakshapita Sarvangaya Namaha Om Pullambuja Vilochanaya Namaha Om Chandrikasitahasa Shri Manditanana Mandalaya Namaha Om Chutavatyam Samasinaya Namaha Om Churidakhila Vibhramaya Namaha Om Veda Vedanta तत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचराकृतये नमः। ॐ उदीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलरिद्बोधस्कन्धाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्टे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ ऋच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रिशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजलिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रह सुप्रवाह विवश तादात्म्यभावङ्गतः विनिष्टस्वगभीर नित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमः इदम् लोकोत्तर ज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. We conclude the satsang with the Harati to Bhagavan. Ramana Sadhu, Ramana Sadhu, Ramana Sadhu, Rayate. Ramana Sadhu, Ramana Sadhu, Ramana Sadhu, Rayate. Ramana Sadguru, Ramana Sadguru, Ramana Sadguru, Ramana Sadguru, Ramana Sadguru, Ramana Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana.